Let's talk about mandatory hotel quarantine, because it will come into force this Friday in Ireland. The booking portal went live this morning. I understand the first bookings have already been made on it. The cost for an incoming passenger coming from one of the 33 designated states is almost €1,900 for 12 nights. For more on this, we're joined now by Eoghan Corry, the editor of Air and Travel magazine, Declan Power, the security analyst, and Alan Kelly, the leader of the Labour Party. Gentlemen, you're all very welcome to the show. Eoghan, can you first of all talk us through how this will work, the mechanics of it, when someone lands in Dublin Airport, for example?
Fairly straightforward, Kieran. It's one of the few straightforward things is exactly what will happen. Passengers will be disembarked. Anybody who's coming from the 33 named countries, and another category of passengers, which are people who have managed to get on the aircraft without showing evidence of a PCR test, don't have a PCR test. They will be asked to stay on the aircraft. They will be met separately. They will be transported to the hotel, the Crown Plaza in Santry, and there they will remain for 14 days. There is an arrangement where they will remain in the room and they will get out for exercise. They will be fed and subjected to the normal hotel hospitality, but they are asked to remain there and are not allowed to leave.
Okay. It's fairly straightforward if somebody doesn't have evidence on the plane of having had a PCR test before they left their country of origin. How do we know if someone has come from one of those 33 designated countries, unless the flight has come from that country?
Now we have it. There's two flights that come from designated countries. They are the Emirates and the Etihad services. The rest will have transferred through another airport, and it's not quite clear, is it being left to the passenger, which I suspect it is, to declare that they've come from those countries. There is an important proviso here as well for people who have people coming from South Africa, Brazil, are the two main non-European countries, but obviously Austria is quite a significant inclusion in that list, as is the United Arab Emirates. That if you have not been in that country in the previous 14 days, you are now subject to the ordinary self-isolation we all must do when we arrive, and not the mandatory hotel quarantine. And that gives the option of people who prefer not to camp down in Santry for their 14-day quarantine to be able to do it on a transit country. Most people coming into Brazil from Ireland would come through Lisbon, for example. But
so you want to ultimately get to Ireland, stay in Lisbon for a fortnight, and then fly to Ireland.
Absolutely. With the negative, and remember, this is very important, Kieran. Some people, most people know this, but it's sort of been ignored in the debate. Everyone getting on an aircraft, and it's policed at the check-in desk, has to have a negative PCR test anyway. So you do need your negative PCR test. But that is one way in which people travelling from the designated countries has not come directly to Ireland to stay for a period in another country. One of the really unexpected things is that transit passengers are included. That will have devastating effects for two of our Asian flights. It means that the Emirates and the Etihad, all their passengers will now have to go through hotels.
Explain what you mean by that, Eoghan, that transit passengers are included. You mean and Asian flights?
If you've travelled from anywhere through Dubai to get to Ireland, or through Abu Dhabi to get to Ireland, you're counted as if you've come
from Dubai or Abu Dhabi.
One of the 30. And remember, Dubai has vaccinated 75% of its population. It's quite interesting that Austria and UAE are lobbying very heavily to get off that list of 33. That's a separate argument, but it does raise huge questions for the two airlines in question, that even if they have only been in Dubai for 2 hours, they're regarded as coming from a red list country.
All right. Listen, stay on the line there, Eoghan. I mentioned Declan Power, the security analyst, who's with me as well. Declan, what will be the role of the Defence Forces in all of this?
Well, the Defence Forces' role in this is to act as the primary agent of the state in this, and in practice that will mean there will be a liaison, and it will be a liaison and coordination role. So they will oversee the process, give guidance where required to the private security staff, and act as the linchpin of communication between what's happening at the operational end of things and the governance oversight.
Okay, so essentially this is being operated separately, but the Defence Force is managing that operation.
Yes, as I understand it. And it's not entirely unusual role for the Defence Forces. Certainly it's similar to kinds of things that Defence Force members would have done on different types of overseas missions, where they would be liaising and working with other Indigenous security forces and organisations, or indeed maybe something similar to the unusual task they were given back in the 90s when they were asked to set up and run emergency homeless shelters. Well, in that one, there would be a bit of a difference in that they were completely responsible for the operational running of them. In this, the day-to-day activity of those who are being quarantined will be overseen by private security staff.
Yeah.
There will probably be a Defence Force member on duty at that location to oversee the proper running of this and to ensure
but they won't
that
be there as a supplement to the security personnel. They'll be there more as the liaison, as you said, between the Defence Forces and the department and the private company running the operation.
Indeed, and from personal experience, what will probably transpire is the Defence Forces personnel will have been briefed and probably at this stage are already well versed in practices for managing COVID, practices for managing in this process. And they will probably oversee the personnel from the security companies to ensure that they're acting within those guidelines, that everything is being done according to the standards and expectations of the operation. There will be the benchmark, the observers of standards being adhered to. They won't have a direct role in securing these people. That would frankly be a bit of a waste of their time. But they would ensure that the processes and parameters are in place for good supervision and good operational practice.
Okay, so we won't have Defence Forces MPs running people down in Santry if they try to escape from this hotel.
No, and I think it's important too. There's been a degree of hysteria about it. I mean, the people that are going to be coming into these, let's face it, this is not new ground. The Australians and New Zealanders, two jurisdictions very similar to ours, have been doing this for quite some months. And the reason the Australian and New Zealand Defence Forces were brought in was to ensure standards were being upheld, because the private security firms in those cases were not doing the job properly. And the people who are going into those places, they're not criminals, they're not terrorists, they're ordinary people coming from A to B, and 99.9% of them are going to do what's required of them. And it's to ensure that this process goes smoothly and that everybody is kept as safe as possible. You're not going to have Defence Force personnel there in an armed capacity. They're going to be there in a supervisory capacity, and it's wholly appropriate that they be used in that regard. And then the Gardaí will be a backstop to that if there is a situation that requires the application of the state in terms of applying, powers of detention and arresting people, things like that, that they can be brought on board. Yeah. And again, a Defence Force NCO or officer would be there on hand to make decisions with regards to bringing in different players as required.
Look, if somebody has been through a hotel quarantine in another country, Declan mentioned Australia and New Zealand, where they are up and running and have been up and running. I'd love to hear their experience of it, how they found those couple of weeks. 53106 for your text. You can call me on 1890 453 106. Eoghan Corry is still on the line of Air and Travel magazine. Eoghan, does this system now hasten the need for a vaccine passport system of travel? Because you'd imagine it's going to be very hard to unwind hotel quarantines while there is still some level of risk. Now that they're there, it'll be hard to get rid of them. And you will still want to get back to some level of international travel before the risk disappears entirely.
Absolutely, Kieran. It's devastating for international travel. If, for instance, those Asian services are affected, it will have a major impact on Irish exporters. They're one of the main two of the main export channels out of the country. So it is really important that this be short term. It's not applied elsewhere in Europe at all. I think the narrative we get in Ireland is often fed by England, which applied it. But Cyprus and Hungary applied it for UK passengers. Greece, if there's a positive test. Iceland, if you don't have a local address. And Norway for non-Norwegians. So we're really moving in a direction here which isn't shared by the rest of Europe. And the Irish have been doing hotel quarantine anyway. There have been about 12,000 people, Kieran, who've come into Ireland at a time when you do your self-isolation. Were unable to self-isolate because they didn't have an address here. Very often a company had brought them in. So we have put 12,000 people through non-mandatory hotel quarantine, if that makes sense. So there is a record of this working, not just in Australia and New Zealand, but working here. But certainly it's a very cumbersome and very expensive, not just for the passenger, but for the government, because the hotel contract stipulates a certain amount of security staff and the transport and all of the other headaches that the hotel must bear, which are expensive and which the taxpayer is paying for very little effect, because the number of imported cases, as Leo Varadkar and people have been saying all along, has been very, very low.
Brian in Dublin has texted in to say, I want to avoid quarantine and I just transited through the UK, assuming my departure country isn't on their list. Another person makes a similar point. If I want to travel from Austria to Ireland and I wish to avoid all this, all I have to do is transit through the UK using separate tickets, as Austria is not on the UK's mandatory quarantine list, or else I just pretend I came from Germany. Perhaps there is a loophole or two. Well, Alan Kelly is the leader of the Labour Party. Alan, I saw comments from you earlier that Ireland's approach to this has been an abject failure. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, I was sick and tired of the Taoiseach Micheál Martin always saying they follow public health advice, and the public health advice has been that we should have brought this in since last May. So that's a complete contradiction. Also, I mean, if you look at it, 33 countries, Botswana, French Guiana, Lesotho, I mean, I don't know if we're going to get many people from those countries, but if you look at the rates of infection at the moment across the world, in the USA, in France, or in many other jurisdictions, I mean, why they're not on the list, I don't know. And
well, Alan, sorry, on that, Hazel has texted in to say there was no positive cases yesterday in Botswana or Lesotho. Not one.
Yeah, but my point being is that there aren't too many people travelling to Ireland from there.
No.
Rather, there to be many cases. That's not the issue. But the other issue is this, is that, like a number of your people who have texted your show, I mean, basically, if you're flying in from South Africa, and many people who travel to Ireland from South Africa would have dual passports, they may just go into London, switch over to the British passport and fly into Ireland. Loads of people have pointed out how you can, if you're coming from Austria, you could fly to the UK. And there's there's thousands of other versions how we could say this. So there's loopholes all over the place. So if you're going to do this right, you should have done it right first day, or when you were bringing it in relation to making it mandatory, along with a whole range of other measures in order to prevent the variants. People keep saying that, it's community transmission, but variants don't come here by themselves. They come here because people travel. That's just a fact. Yeah. And we have left ourselves open to this because we haven't dealt with this appropriately. And doing half measures simply at this late in the day, when we have an announcement...
It's better late than never, not something, though.
But 33 countries, come on, it's not going to make a massive impact. If you look at how much we've fallen away, you look at Denmark today. Denmark have announced today that they have everyone vaccinated over 50s by May, and they have a whole plan put in place. And here we are bringing in a measure like this because we failed in so many different facets of all the tools we should have been using in order to fight this virus, and this being one of them.
Yeah. Do you think we should follow Denmark's lead and look at significantly opening up all of the country once everyone over 50 is vaccinated? That's a fairly liberal attitude to lifting restrictions.
Well, we'll be in a much better position and we'll have a lot more choices. But we're way behind in all of this. I mean, we have a big meeting coming up this Thursday in relation to vaccines. I'm not into vaccine nationalism or vaccine ingredient nationalism, but I do want to see a situation where the contracts that, particularly from AstraZeneca, are honoured and honoured in the Europeans' favour, unlike the way it's been done at the moment just with the UK previously. So we need to ensure that all of that happens and that the actual rollout of vaccines, along with public health measures that actually would have worked. I mean, the Taoiseach is going to have the game of his life next Tuesday when he stands up around this time to address the nation on where we're going, because I believe he's absolutely lost the dressing room and indeed the crowd in the stadium at this stage.
All right.
Over the last number of weeks, people have really got to the end of their tether. So he's going to have to perform something new. But we have warned him about all of this. We have warned him in relation to the measures that need to be put in place, and he hasn't taken the advice. So it's up to him to now deliver something that will actually get us to a better place in another month.
Back to the matter at hand then, before I let you go, Alan, you say you would have put in this system in place a lot sooner, given that Neffet have been calling for it for almost a year. It is only coming in place today. At the very least, is your call that far more countries be added to that list?
I believe it should be mandatory.
For all incoming travellers?
Absolutely, bar essential supply line workers. And I believe with a number of other public health measures, the testing and tracing, which has basically fallen behind. Why we haven't got antigen testing, the report, where's this famous report that's meant to be done some time ago? And a whole range of other measures collectively still need to be done in order to fight this virus. I'm very concerned about where the figures are going. I'm very concerned about what I've read from a number of GPs in relation to the volume of referrals today and yesterday, compared to today and yesterday, the last number of weeks, which are gone up. So we could be heading for increases over the next coming weeks. So the government are really going to have to look at things completely differently. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It's about being most effective. So please, they need to re-look at their whole strategy here.
Alan Kelly, leader of the Labour Party as well. We heard from Eoghan Corry, the editor of Air and Travel magazine, and Declan Power, the security analyst.